The Chaser Report is recorded on Gadigal land.
Striving for mediocrity in a world of excellence. This is the Chaser Report.
Hello and welcome to the Chaser Report with Dom and Charles.
Hello, Charles. Grab a big cup and let's settle in for a great episode about trends. I'd never heard of a Stanley Cup, Charles, until a couple of days ago.
Dom, you're always out of the picture, aren't you? You're always one day behind. I heard about them like 2 weeks ago. So
that's amazing.
I'm totally hip to the groove.
You're so au fait. If you don't know what a Stanley Cup is, what are you even doing with yourself? We're going to make you wait till after this. So they're also called tumblers, Charles, I believe, which is not the way. I thought tumblers were like a regular cup, but you've lived in America, and in America everything is huge.
Yes, that's
isn't
right.
it?
Yeah.
Everything's absurdly huge, and so too the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. So hang on, I've just realised I don't quite know what a Stanley Cup is. I thought a Stanley Cup was just a bottle, like it's a water bottle, like a sort of metal water bottle. Is that not what it is? You said tumbler.
They call them tumblers. So what they are...
They're a sort of tumbler with a lid. No?
Yeah, they're quite funny. So they're basically, the main characteristic is that they're stupidly enormous. And so if you imagine the bottom is the size of a normal cup, so it fits into a cup holder in your SUV that you drive everywhere because you live in America.
Oh, yeah.
But then it sort of expands out and it has this absolutely massive, like probably more than a litre capacity in a handle and a metal lid with a straw coming off it. And then the important point is, Charles, the Stanley Cup, and this is why it went viral, it's very good at keeping cold things cold and hot things hot. Now,
so
you might think
it's a thermos.
Isn't that a thermos? Yes.
Yeah, it's a thermos. Yes, right.
But it's one that you can drink from. And the key thing that I discovered when we talked about this the other day,
you can drink from a thermos. You put it to your lips.
Yeah, and when you go to Japan, like there's a million, little kind of thermosy things that they have for tea. So there's nothing new about this, but they're absolutely massive. The scale of them, like it's American sized. Like
right.
It's got enough. You could fit enough Coke in there to give you diabetes in one cup, basically. So they're huge.
Right. So, and is there some sort of kidney problem epidemic in America that has led to this trend? Is this based on some medical need? Is this?
Look, it's. I mean, there's some sort of mental health thing going on in America. There's certainly a nutrition problem with the American diet.
Because it does remind me, remember a couple of years ago, Nina Oyama did the Chaser Report, and she was on a very strange challenge to, how many litres of water did you, I think she had to drink like 4 litres of water a day.
Oh, a huge amount of water.
And it got to the point, because back then the Chase Report was slightly longer, wasn't it? It was sort of half an hour, 40 minutes.
We did them once a week and they were much longer, yeah.
And she kept on having to duck out to the toilet.
That's what happened with the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, right. But maybe they should make a sort of Stanley, for the other end. Like,
oh, yes.
Yeah. Like
to pee into. Perfect.
Yeah, Stanley urinary bag. And then you're sort of sorted. You don't need to get out of your car.
What a great idea. So, Charles, the thing that's interesting about these is that they kind of reflect the total fickleness of fashion. So these things have been around for many, many years, these Stanley Cups. But then they didn't have a huge one until about 2019. They did a 40-ounce one. How much is 40 ounces in
Nobody
real
knows.
measurements?
It's impossible to convert. It's too big. It would be 40 ounces would be about 500 gram mils. So it'd be about 1.5 litres, I think.
I've just got it. So it's it's nearly 1.2 litres. So it's about like it's one of those standard bottles of Coke that you buy from the supermarket or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that used to be a bottle that in theory contained multiple drinks.
Yeah.
There's now one that just contains one whole bottle. So a standard fridge-sized bottle.
My understanding is they're not cheap either. Like a Stanley bottle, which is basically just a shitty thermos that you're going to lose after 3 seconds, costs like starting price is like $70. Is that right?
Yes.
So yeah, $70 American, so over $100 for a portable bottle. Right.
So, and this is the thing that's happened is that this guy called Terence Riley took over as the CEO, and these things were always kind of like basically camping equipment. They were boring, just sort of thermos cups. Because when I say to you, like thermos, you don't get excited. You don't want to queue and buy one, do you?
Well,
what if I told you that the thermos could come in pink?
Ooh, okay, yeah.
That's what happened. They made them pink.
Yeah, right. So they
and then everyone went crazy. No. Bizarrely enough, there's no Bluetooth in this. So this thing has become absolutely massive purely on the basis that they did it in pink.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah, because it got incredibly profitable. They made $750 million in 2023. That's up from $73 million in revenue in 2019. So tenfold the sales in 3 years.
Do you know one of the main reasons why it went so popular, why it went viral?
Why?
Because on TikTok, a woman showed how after her car crashed and turned into a massive fireball, basically, she managed to get back to it and found the Stanley Cup. The ice cubes hadn't melted.
Ah, that's
inside
good.
The Stanley Cup.
Yes, that's product placement you want. We should do that with our podcast. We should get somebody to crash their car and send it into a burning inferno. And then,
that'd be great.
And then crawl back into their car and still find our jokes funny.
Yes, possibly because of the brain injury.
Now, Bill, talking of which...
this is basically what it is.
Talking of which... We've actually, just in the last few days, they've discovered why Stanley Cups are so successful amongst Americans.
Oh, really?
Okay, so this product is going well. It's selling 10 times more than it did a few years ago. And there has to be some sort of terrible sting in the tail, doesn't there, Dom? No American rise from grace cannot be sullied by some sort of grasp for terrible, some sort of terrible disaster.
Okay, let me try and pick it.
Yep.
Let me try and pick it. So I'm imagining what happens is that they've become disposable. So Americans are so rich and so decadent that these have become Rue would be absolutely up in arms.
Yes.
They've turned into basically single-use cups.
They're the O-bikes.
They're clogging everything.
They're the O-bikes.
Yeah, they're the O-bikes. That's right. Because you buy one and then it's in the wrong shade of pink, so you've got to buy another one in a different colour. And basically you end up with a shelf full of these things. Apparently someone just got arrested with 200 of them that she stole. This is how big these things are.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what it is? Is it that they're just sort of so disposable and everyone always forgets them and so keeps buying more of them?
No, but I can tell you if they were disposed of, they'd have to be disposed of in a very careful manner, perhaps in a hazardous waste tip.
A hazardous waste tip?
Yes, because it's turned out that why they keep your ice cubes so cool inside a burning inferno of a car is because they've got lead in them. They've got lead in them, Dom.
In a thing that you drink?
Yes.
Who thought that was a good idea?
Well, I don't know, Mr. Stanley, probably back in, 1820 when, you'd put lead in the ice pops to make them sweeter.
You'd add lead just for a bit of flavour back then, wouldn't you? And if it was a nice hot day, I'll put in some ice cubes and a pinch of lead.
Yes, with a sprinkling of asbestos just to round it off.
Yes. Okay, that's extraordinary. So she was lucky that basically there wasn't lead as a result of that fire in the car.
There probably
lead poisoning everywhere.
There probably was because this TikTok's gone viral in the last few days of this person testing out all their water bottles that they've got. Of course, they're Americans, so they've got 15 water bottles. All the ones that aren't Stanleys come back with no lead in them, right? And all the ones that are Stanleys immediately test positive for lead. Now, somebody then pulled apart a Stanley Cup and realised that the inside, the lining, not where you're supposed to put your mouth, but inside it, where you sort of in the vacuum part of it,
the insulating bit,
to seal it, they're using lead because lead obviously is in solder, and solder is a really cheap way to create a metal seal, right? So instead of, coming up with a substance that maybe, say, is food safe, they've just gone, you know what? A really cheap way to do this is to use the same stuff that we use in our industrial processes. Can't see any harm in that, right? And the funniest thing is, the funniest detail is that everyone's going, but surely that's illegal. That's illegal. And it is. It's totally illegal in America, right? Stanley Cups. Are they made in America?
Surprising.
No, they're not made in America. So it's just
fantastic.
To manufacture it is completely illegal in the country that it's not manufactured. They just sell them there. So it doesn't
presumably
matter.
there's a huge number of workers, whether they're made China or Cambodia or wherever it might be.
Yeah.
A huge amount of workers who have died as a
well,
result of making this
I
stuff.
don't know whether
and they
lead
can be
poisoning kills you. Doesn't it just make you really dumb? It just gives you
I'm
brain
not sure.
damage. Yeah.
I'm not willing to experiment. But I mean, if this is fatal, if this turns out to be fatal, if you're drinking lead, what a fantastic sarcophagus a Stanley Cup would be for your ashes. Nothing's going to get in there.
So
you set it on fire again, it's still going to be all right.
Oh, that's true. No, they'll have trouble cremating the bodies because they'll stay ice cold. Isn't that the problem that it'll be? They'll be sort of lead-lined bodies.
Oh, they'll put them in the... I'm saying after you put them in the crematorium.
Oh, right,
you put them in before, there's no chance of doing it.
No,
that's absolutely right.
So, but the thing is...
Yes, by the way, you're right. I've just checked here. It does cause intellectual disability. For instance,
and
you
anger,
might think that it's sensible
issues.
to put... Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a whole book called Freakonomics, and one of the chapters is about how actually they think that the rise of sort of stupid violent crime in the 1970s and 80s is almost definitely, well, it's definitely correlated, but may even be caused by the fact that we had lead in our petrol, lead in our paint, lead in everything. And it just made everyone a little bit angrier and dumber. But
thank goodness it's been brought back.
But I think the thing is that this is actually, if you look at it from purely economic terms, which nowadays is really the only metric that we should value anything by.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Certainly not public health.
Is that this is the perfect product. Because if you think about it, you have to be sort of mildly, like I can sort of understand getting in on the Stanley Cup craze. You go, oh, pink cup, everyone's doing it, might as well try it out, right? But no one's going to stay on that craze, right? Unless they're incredibly dumb, right? But
I see.
The Stanley Cup makes you dumb, so you keep buying a Stanley Cup. This is perfect.
That is absolute genius. I must say, Charles, I was in Kmart the other day and I noticed something that looked a lot like this for $15. And I'm just worried. Someone needs to go and check whether the ones in Kmart that are $15, have they got lead in them? Because if they don't, they're not the real thing. You should send them back.
That's right, exactly.
But don't
are you trying to set off an Anko Cup craze? Is that what you were doing?
But the other thing is, apparently, Charles, and there's some sort of reason for this that I don't understand, to do with fluid dynamics. They have a hole in the top, by the way, Stanley Cups. So they're not actually waterproof. So all these American kids have been putting them in their bags, and they leak because they have a hole in the top. There's something to do with in order to actually drink out of them, you have to have some sort of hole coming in, just like how coffee cups have a little hole in them. So they're not even... they'll keep your drink cool if your car goes on fire, but don't turn them upside down, Charles. They can't cope with that.
That doesn't sound very useful for camping. Like, you sort of set out on a trek with your Stanley Cup. You pull it out of your backpack's all wet, and then you die of dehydration.
Well, because you've been having lead poisoning, so you bought the cup that's not waterproof. But Charles, just so you know, I mean, there's a darker story going on.
I am.
The darker than even the lead, and this is disposable fashion. I mean, as I mentioned, but the good side of things is that when Stanley Cups are no longer popular in about 2 weeks' time, and there are millions upon millions of these things in the United States sitting around full of lead, what an amazing solution to nuclear waste!
Yes.
Can you imagine? Don't worry about whatever they're doing now. Just get all the Stanley Cups. Put all the plutonium rods in them. They've got lead. Yeah. It's ready to go.
If only they hadn't put those holes in the top, they'd be perfect.
The Chaser Report. News a few days after it happens.
So, but Charles, there is a broader story here to do with fashion and the sort of the way that things come into and out of fashion. Because the guy who bought this company, or who certainly runs the company now, is a guy called Terence Riley. And this guy, Terence Riley, who's made the Stanley Cup so popular just by making it pink, he previously did this with another product, which came in and was very fashionable, and then everyone thought they were the worst things in the world. But now somehow they're fashionable again. And that is the Croc. You remember how Crocs came in and everyone was like, oh, wow, these are really practical. I can wear them to the beach and then wear them wherever. Apparently chefs like wearing them and so on. And then people decided they were the ugliest thing in the world.
Yes.
Then this guy, Terence Riley, somehow made them popular again.
Yes.
And he did it through gibbets. Are you across the gibbet economy? This is absolutely massive. I can't believe the Chaser hasn't gotten into gibbets.
What's gibbets?
Okay, so you know the classic Croc kind of clog design that looks ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
You know how they've got holes on them?
Yes.
For ventilation? I don't know why there are holes on there. It's the same as a Stanley Cup. You tip them upside down. What someone, probably Terence Riley, I think, realised was that you could sell collectible things that you poke into those holes. And so now, I first saw my niece having it, now my daughter's got it. So you get Crocs and you kind of festoon them with little plastic pieces of crap to personalise them. And Crocs sells you like hundreds of different kinds of these things. So it's not actually personalised in any way. I mean, they've just designed them all. But this is why kids love them, because you can stick. So the Chaser needs to work out
Yes.
a product with holes in it that people can stick collectible items in it somehow. Like, we're selling the Chaser Annual, but I can't stick like a little picture of a pineapple on it, or a musical note, or a vampire, or whatever, or a mermaid.
But we've got to stick to our brand. It should be like an Australian politician or something. It should be like an elbow head that you can stick.
Actually, that's what we could do. We could make gibbets in the shape of Albo and Dutton's heads.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing to put down there? You can probably get a potato one, actually.
Yep.
And the important thing is that, I mean, Crocs are actually, they last forever.
Yes.
The great thing about the gibbets is that they don't. You know,
They
the ones you
don't.
bought last week aren't cool anymore, so you got to throw them away. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. So, but I
So
think
they've
the
made a
mistake
very
that he
long-lasting product disposable.
The mistake he made with the Crocs, though, was not putting lead in them.
Well, they may. I can't rule out whether there's lead in them. Maybe that's why they're so good at being what I thought they're just rubber or something.
No.
But maybe
that's
there's
right.
lead in them.
Yes, that would be it.
Or asbestos, actually. Asbestos seems more likely.
Yeah.
For insulation.
Yeah, that's good. Well, look, I think we've solved that problem.
I think we've ended fashion, Charles. I think fashion is now over. We've mocked it.
Yeah.
The disposability of items that cost far too much. No one will be doing that anymore.
No, exactly. I think everyone will just be sensible from now on and do what we do, which is we're really just sort of like sensible clothes that are comfortable.
Yeah, that's why I'm dressed in a hypercolour T-shirt right now. They'll never go out of style.
Our gear is from Road. We are part of the Iconoclast Network. Catch you next week.